joining us on the show. He has, of course, co-authored now the famous study titled Towards a Payroll Reporting in India, which uses EPFO data set to estimate the number of jobs being created in the country. Thank you so much, Mr. Ghosh, for speaking with us again this evening on Prime Time. I'm going to get straight to it. The 7 million figure from your survey, from your paper, is what has become controversial because you have used data of a certain period from the EPFO database to extrapolate it and with adjustments conclude that 7 million new jobs were created last year at a time when many say that there is a big job crisis. Could you first explain how you came to that figure, sir?
See, I think the report is out in public domain, and this report we have estimated. I'll just give one corollary to it. Yesterday, the economic survey came out with the data of how much was the estimate of total payroll stock in the country, and their number was 7.5 crore. And our number is actually 7.7 crore. So that exactly validates the data which we have given out. Now, in terms of the EPFO, ESIC and the NPS, you need to understand that these are basically payroll data. That means if one is on the payroll and getting a continuous salary. So the point which we are trying to make out is that we looked into the EPFO contribution. We made the adjustment of the people who were coming from the informal sector to the formal sector by deleting them. For example, the people who joined under amnesty scheme. We also took into account the fact that if some people has retired from the EPFO scheme, his contribution became zero. So he deleted all zero accounts, and he only took those people in the age group of 18 to 25 who are clustering around the age of 22 to calculate the new age number. In fact, we deleted 55 lakhs number of people who were above the 25 in the EPFO age group, and in the ESIC age group we only took 18 to 22. We also removed all overlaps between EPFO and ESIC, and also we under the NPS we removed the people who are enrolled under Atal Pension Yojana, and also were people who are enrolling from the corporate scheme. So basically it was a detailed exercise. All the nitty-gritties were taken into account, and at the end of the day, if you look into one of the numbers which has been given out, that it says that the total number of outstanding payroll in the country as on March 2017 was 9.2 crore, which is significantly lower than the NSSO estimates of 10.8 crores. So this gives you a validation that now our numbers are actually on the lower side what we have given out.
Okay, let me just read out for you, sir, some of the points which have been made in various articles since that report came out, questioning that data, because I think it's only fair that you respond to this. One of those points is that if there were 7 million formal jobs being added annually, that would be more than the number of skilled workers entering the workforce every year. That's 6.6 million. And would that really be possible? Does that mean that we are creating 3 times more non-farm jobs than the United States does in its current period of a mild economic boom? And I'm quoting here from an article written by Praveen Chakravarti recently. He's also asking that can you really extrapolate data which is taken from between April to November 2017 and then come to this figure? What would your response be to some of these questions?
See, I'll tell you one thing over here. Yes, I have looked at the article, but most of the article, the points which the article has actually made in an earlier article, that has been repeated. And some of the points which has been made in the article are actually completely tangential in terms of making the database public and other things. I don't want to go into those things because that are a little bit personal in nature. But your point exactly to the 6.6 million job, I think that's a completely misplaced notion which have been put out. If you look at the presentation, out of 15 million people, 8 million graduates were coming, of which only 6.6 million could have completed the course. And remember that EPFO is actually the jobs for these low skilled people. So therefore, it is the 8.4 or 9 million people who is actually not getting the jobs. So it's basically he is confusing the stock and the flow. So 6.6 million is not the comparison which we will be making with the 7 million figure which we have given out. And if you look at our number that is given in the second page, we have saying that out of 15 million people, around 9 million people are actually unskilled people, and these are the type of people who are getting jobs under the EPFO, because EPFO, remember, are people who generally pay low paying jobs, and all high paying jobs or skilled jobs, that data is not maintained by the EPFO because that is maintained by an outside trust. So that data we have not even captured from the EPFO data. So this, I think, is a misplaced criticism which has been made.
Point which was made is that, does this data account for the impact of policy moves like GST and demonetization, which led to forced formalization, and on the other hand may have led to displacement of jobs in the informal sector? So if there were more jobs added to the formal sector and hence turned up in your EPFO data, does it then reflect the number of jobs which were lost or culled due to these processes?
Yes, I have 2 points to make over here. As I said in the beginning of the show, if you remember, during January to June of 2017, around 10 million EPFO accounts were added, which were actually old, and the government actually was on a drive to enroll EPFO members. And these 1 crore accounts, I mean these 10 million accounts, have been adjusted from the data. So this actually forms a part of the movement from the informal to formal. And regarding the specific point make that whether this informal job loss has been captured by this data or not, let us, I mean, EPFO data is supposed to be of the additions to the job payroll number. Now hypothetically, let us take the, let us assume that there was a there was some amount of job loss. So then the argument becomes that suppose some people had lost their jobs in the GST and say in the because of the demonetization. I am making a completely hypothetical assumptions. Now if this has been the case, that means that people who lost their jobs were only in the age group of 18 to 25 category, because we are only taking people in the 18 to 25 category. So this basically, I mean, contradicts the point which the authors have been making, that there was job losses. So therefore this data is actually not capturing the job losses. So my simple point is that if job loss was the only criteria which we would have taken into account, that means that only people in the age group of 18 to 25 had lost jobs during demonetization and GST, which to me looks a completely, I mean, illogical assumption to make.
Perhaps, Dr. Ghosh, this entire report became so talked about because it has been cited by the government of the day as evidence that the jobs crisis is not as bad as is being made out to be. Putting that aside, what is your view on what the current situation really is? Because we're getting into a budget, we're a day away. And the big question is, what will this government do to tackle jobs? Before that, we must answer how bad the problem is.
No, I'll also come to your point, Amana. I think here I want to make a very specific point. I think there is also has been a lot of points which has been made in the paper that consumption growth is not picking up, investment growth is not picking up. So how can we say that the payroll numbers of so much has been created? Here let me make a simple point, is that Indian consumption has been growing at the rate of steady 6 to 7% per annum, and these EPFO jobs are mostly low paying jobs. So therefore, even if suppose for example a large number of people have got jobs at the lower end of the salary, it may not make much to the consumption boom which the country actually may witness. So this is my limited point. Regarding the other point which you are saying, we have made a limited observation that the government must endeavor to give out a payroll reporting just like the other countries do, because that is the missing puzzle in our policy analysis, and we as an policy makers or any policy maker day to day face this problem. So given this limited point, even if you look into our reports, we have said that there are 25 million babies who are born during the year. So around 15 million come into the labor force on a conservative basis. So even out of that 15, if 6 to 7 million people get jobs, so there is still another half amount of people who are yet to get jobs. So the job story, actually what we are trying to say, if one goes to the report literally, is we are not downplaying that India requires jobs, but the only point which I want to make over here is that point number one, that in India the payroll, we need to move towards some payroll reporting. Point number two, our formal sector job creation may have been underreported, and number three is that we now need to really skill our people, because that's the basic problem in our country. We have engineers who pass out from colleges but ultimately gets up getting jobs in the, for example, in small shops. So that's the point which everybody should debate, that how can we train our people so that they can get jobs who adequately compensate this. I am never saying that job is not an issue in the country, because there has been news also of declining labor force participation of the women, other things, but my limited point is that let's not digress the debate. Let's understand that skilling is also the most important issue in India today. Until and unless you don't skill your people, you will end up creating a labor force who will continuously remain on the on a lower payroll, which will not add value to them and also value to the country and value to the demographic dividend which India currently enjoys.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Soumyakanti Ghosh, for speaking with us. Dr. Ghosh, there are clarifying number of criticisms made really about the report he co-authored, which claimed that 7 million jobs in the formal sector were created annually.